Joining me now are two members of the Parliamentary Press Gallery. Tonda MacCharles is with the Toronto Star and Mia Rabson is with the Canadian Press. Well, both of you, I know you're working on this story, the announcement of new sanctions against the Iranian regime. Tonda, you wrote an extensive piece on this week in terms of what the government's thinking was. What do you make of what was announced today?
Well, it seems that they've tried to take an approach that is not under the criminal code, uses immigration measures to block Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps members and leadership from Canada from either being in Canada or ever entering Canada. And they're, levying more economic sanctions and some sanctions now under the Magnitsky Act, which targets individuals for human rights violations. I think what they're trying to do is make it a targeted effort. But at the same time, the Prime Minister has said that they've accepted that there are some 10,000 people that might come under this. Now, are some of those people in Canada? We don't know. There's a lot of detail we didn't hear today. They're using a provision in the IRPA, the Immigration Refugee Protection Act, to essentially make people inadmissible on grounds of terrorism. But, at what point do they actually get to target 10,000 people? Where's that list coming from? How do you verify who is on that list? And are any of them here? We didn't get answers on any of that today. Experts I've talked to this afternoon say that the money that they're putting into enforcement now is a good thing. It's very much needed. That Canada right now is very handicapped on its ability to find out who's got assets held in Canada, to freeze their bank accounts, to freeze those assets. If they're going to put more money into tracking that kind of thing at Global Affairs and at the RCMP, people say that's a welcome thing. But I think there are a lot of details we don't know about how this is rolling out, and the Prime Minister said we'll get more next week.
Yeah, I asked that question to Sean Fraser, the Immigration Minister, about sanction fatigue. Some people, as you mentioned, and in your article this week, about does Canada have the capacity? And he said, well, a lot will be, he seems to put a lot of confidence in biometrics. Mia, what do you make of the measures? And then we can talk about the politics of this.
Well, the government had to do something. They have been getting hammered in recent days. The pressure on this has really grown in the last several weeks after the death of a woman in Iran by the morality police. That's led to massive uprisings in Iran, and you've seen that in Canada. Last weekend, there was an enormous rally in Toronto area, and Justin Trudeau was not there, and his absence was definitely noted, and it sort of set forth this entire week of just criticism against the government, not doing enough, not listening to the families. So the measures themselves are something they had to do. They seem to be a little bit lacking in detail, and it's almost like they rolled them out today because they knew they were under pressure, that they had to do something. Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister, got sort of heckled and harassed at a rally that was held on Parliament Hill this week. So I think we need a lot more detail, but we did start to see the inkling that the government is finally moving on this. The plane crash that they are partly responding to was almost 3 years ago now.
Yeah, 1,000 days. We celebrated, or we commemorated 1,000 days since the shooting down of that airliner. To you, Tonda, what do you make of the politics? Because a lot of people, the opposition party, as Mia mentions, especially the opposition Conservatives, it's the only subject they've been going on in question period that's not been inflation. They've carved out 2 weeks' worth of solidly hammering the government. Do we really know why it took the government so long to make these decisions?
Well, look, the Parliament unanimously in 2018 supported the idea of listing the IRGC as a terrorist entity. But it's a lot harder, perhaps, to implement some of these things. And so the fact that, they were able to at least pull out some other measures, I think speaks to, they recognize there is an urgency. But it's a lot easier to do, I think, to criticize from the opposition benches than it is to actually implement some of this stuff. And, kudos to the Conservatives for keeping the pressure up. But I think, it was said to me by many people this week that I discussed this with inside government, that if it were easy, it would have been done long ago. The Conservatives, when they were in government, they didn't do it either. So this is a very problematic, complex thing. It affects potentially many Iranian Canadians as well. But it's good to see some action finally, at least on the enforcement piece.
Okay, let's look at another issue which sort of exploded at the week's end or near the end of the week, and that was this revelation that they originally dug up by Global News, and that is of these 4 years worth of YouTube videos, political videos, I mean promotional videos by Pierre Poilievre, but which contain a hidden tag, the hidden tag which links or advertises these videos to groups that are associated with misogynist movement, to the sort of a men's-only movement, and possibly some even more virulent misogynist groups. The Conservative government, the Conservative Party, has said that they looked into it. They've said that a lot of people had access to his videos. They were unable to track down exactly who was responsible, but the tags have been removed immediately. What do you make of the outcry, Mia? What do you make of the outcry? The Liberals raised this and said it's proof that the Conservative leader has been and continues to court extremist groups, and the Conservatives responded in the way I described. What do you make of how it's all playing out?
Well, so the Liberals have been trying for months, if not years, to connect Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to some of these more extremist far-right movements. We saw that during the convoy. We've seen it in the months since, and the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre have tried very hard to try and say that that's not who they are. We had earlier this year, there was a picture of Poilievre with a known leader, far-right leader, and he sort of disavowed it, but without really sort of apologizing, and his response was sort of, well, I know, I did that, but it's a problem for you guys as well. You see that again here. The Liberals are trying to make this connection, and this decision, this tag, basically handed them a gift by saying, well, you actually tagged your own videos targeting these people that you say that you're not connected to. So it's a big problem for Poilievre. His response was not as much of a sort of denial as people maybe were expecting. They started to do an investigation, and then they said, well, there were so many people working there, we couldn't possibly figure out who it is, which just leaves the door open that it was Poilievre himself. So the Liberals are going to continue to use this. You saw some really strong statements from them even today about this. It is not going to go away easily for the Conservative leader. You can expect that this is something the Liberals will be bringing up again and again and again.
Okay, Tonda, your thoughts on how this has played out?
Well, I think the Conservative leader's office would be wise to actually put it to bed immediately and find out who actually did put that tag on. It can't be that difficult. He is a master of social media himself, and they have had many, I think, months of campaigning to understand who exactly they're targeting their messages to. So politically, he'd be very wise to put it to bed really quickly and find out, and not just drop the probe, because it looks like a shrug. And if he wants to appeal to a big swath of voters that polls already show he has trouble with, i.e. women, he needs to deal with it. Women will not look kindly on that. And so I think politically it's something he's got to get on top of. I think, he's had some good moments in the last 3 to 4 weeks since he's been leader of the opposition, good speeches. But when it comes to thinking on his feet, he's shown that he's not as agile.
Okay, on that note, obviously we will revisit some of these issues. I want to thank both of you. I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, same to you, Martin.